I never thought a frozen waterfall would be the catalyst for revealing just how corrupt our HOA president really was. But when that wall of ice blocked Cascade Ridge's only exit road for 3 days straight, I became the only person who could get in or out of our mountain community, and that made me very dangerous to some very desperate people. My name is Zachary Xu, and I bought my property in Cascade Ridge, Colorado, specifically because it sat on the edge of the development with direct access to an old logging road that connected to Highway 82. The previous owner had been a logger back in the 70s, and the easement was grandfathered into my deed. Most people in the HOA did not even know it existed. I liked it that way. It meant I could come and go without driving past the main gatehouse, where our HOA president, Patricia Hendricks, liked to monitor everyone's movements like some kind of suburban dictator. Patricia was exactly what you would picture when someone says, HOA Karen. 52 years old, blonde highlights that were always fresh from the salon, perfectly manicured nails, and a smile that never reached her eyes. She drove a white Lexus SUV with a custom license plate that read President P, and she treated our community of 43 homes like her personal fiefdom. In the 3 years since she had been elected president, she had issued over 200 violation notices, filed liens against 6 properties, and made life miserable for anyone who dared to paint their mailbox the wrong shade of approved beige. I had managed to stay off her radar mostly because I worked from home as a software consultant and kept to myself. My house was a modest 3-bedroom cedar-sided cabin that met all the architectural guidelines. My lawn was maintained by a service that knew exactly what height Patricia demanded, and I did not attend HOA meetings because they were scheduled during my standing client calls on purpose. Patricia liked when people did not show up. It meant she could pass whatever she wanted without opposition. The freeze started on January 14th. Colorado had been experiencing a weirdly warm winter until a polar vortex decided to camp out over the Rockies for a week. Temperatures dropped to -15 degrees, and the small waterfall that ran down the cliff face next to our only exit road turned into a massive ice sculpture almost overnight. By the second day, chunks of ice the size of refrigerators had built up until the entire road was blocked. The county said they could not do anything about it until the temperature rose enough that it was safe to bring equipment in. With the forecast showing continued Arctic temperatures, we were looking at least 3 more days of being completely cut off. Except I was not cut off. My logging road worked just fine. I did not advertise this fact initially. I used my exit on January 15th to drive into Aspen for groceries and supplies, figuring everyone else had stocked up before the freeze hit. When I returned that evening, I found Patricia standing at the base of my driveway in a puffy white coat that probably cost more than my first car. Zachary, she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness, I saw you driving out earlier. I was not aware there was another exit from Cascade Ridge. I kept my expression neutral as I rolled down my window. There is not an HOA exit. I have a private easement on my property that connects to an old logging road. It is in my deed. Her smile tightened, I see. And this logging road is passable in this weather. It is rough, but my truck handles it fine. How convenient. She stepped closer to my truck, and I could see her mind working behind those cold blue eyes. As HOA president, I need to inspect this road to determine if it could be used as an emergency exit for the community. It is private property, Patricia. The easement is mine alone. We are in an emergency situation, Zachary. What if someone has a medical crisis? What if there is a fire? You cannot possibly think it is acceptable to keep this access to yourself when your neighbors might need it. I had been expecting this angle. Anyone with a genuine emergency can call 911. The county has helicopters for medical evacuations, and the fire department has equipment that can get through terrain my logging road cannot handle. We are not stranded, we are just inconvenienced. Patricia's mask slipped for just a second, and I saw real anger flash across her face. I will be bringing this up at an emergency board meeting. You might want to reconsider your position before then. She turned and walked away before I could respond, her boots crunching in the snow. I sat in my truck for a moment, watching her retreat, and felt the first stirrings of unease. Patricia did not make empty threats. She always followed through, usually in ways that were technically legal but absolutely ruthless. The emergency board meeting was called for 8 p.m. that same night. I received the email notification at 6:45, which violated the HOA's own bylaws requiring at least 24 hours notice for special meetings. I thought about not attending, but something told me I needed to see what Patricia was planning. The meeting was held in Patricia's oversized living room, which she preferred to the community center because it reinforced the idea that she was in charge. 12 people showed up, which was actually a decent turnout for a Cascade Ridge HOA meeting. Most of them were Patricia's supporters, people she had carefully cultivated over the years by selectively enforcing rules against their enemies and ignoring violations by her allies. Patricia sat in a high-backed chair that looked almost like a throne, with her vice president, Martin Clark, on her right and treasurer, Donna Sheffield, on her left. Martin was a retired attorney who treated HOA business with the same aggressive tactics he had probably used in his career. Donna was quieter, but just as loyal to Patricia, having been appointed to her position after the previous treasurer had been forced to resign over a minor bookkeeping discrepancy that I suspected Patricia had manufactured. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," Patricia began, her voice taking on the formal tone she used for official business. "We have a serious situation that requires immediate action. As you all know, our community is currently cut off from the outside world due to the frozen waterfall blocking our main exit. However, I have learned that one of our residents has been keeping a secret from us." All eyes turned to me. I kept my expression blank. "Zachary Xu has a private road on his property that connects to Highway 82. He has been using this road to leave and enter our community while the rest of us are trapped. I believe this road should be made available to all residents during this emergency." A woman named Susan raised her hand immediately. "That seems only fair. We all pay HOA dues. We should all have equal access to exits." I stood up, keeping my voice calm. "The road is not HOA property. It is a private easement that was deeded to my property in 1974. I have no legal obligation to share it, and frankly, it is not suitable for most vehicles. It is barely maintained, crosses a creek in 2 places, and has grades steep enough that you need 4-wheel drive and experience with off-road driving." Martin leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with the thrill of an argument. "Your deed may grant you an easement, but that does not supersede the HOA's authority in emergency situations. Colorado law allows HOAs to take reasonable measures to ensure the health and safety of residents." "Show me the specific statute," I said. Martin's jaw tightened. "I do not have it memorized, but I assure you, because it does not exist," I interrupted. "At least not in the way you are suggesting. The HOA cannot simply seize private property or easements without due process and just compensation. That is basic constitutional law." Patricia held up a manicured hand. "No one is talking about seizing anything, Zachary. We are simply asking you to be a good neighbor and allow your fellow residents to use your road during this temporary emergency." "And if I refuse?" The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Patricia's smile never wavered, but her voice took on a steely edge. "Then the board will be forced to take appropriate action to address your refusal to cooperate with reasonable community safety measures." "That sounds like a threat." "It is a promise," she said. "We take care of each other in Cascade Ridge. People who refuse to be team players find that life here becomes difficult." I looked around the room and saw nods from several of Patricia's supporters. A few people looked uncomfortable but stayed silent. This was how Patricia operated. She created an us versus them dynamic and made sure everyone knew what happened to people who ended up on her bad. "I am leaving now," I said, "and for the record, this meeting is invalid under the HOA's own bylaws. You did not provide adequate notice, and you are discussing actions that are beyond the board's authority. If you attempt to access my property without permission, I will call the sheriff." I walked out before Patricia could respond. My hands were shaking by the time I got to my truck. I had just made an enemy of the most vindictive person in Cascade Ridge, and I had no idea what she was going to do about it. The answer came at 6:30 the next morning when I woke up to the sound of vehicles on my logging road. I threw on clothes and ran outside to find 3 trucks and an SUV attempting to navigate the rough terrain. I recognized Martin's silver Ram pickup in the lead. I jumped in my truck and caught up with them about a 1/4 mile down the road, where they had stopped at the first creek crossing. The water was not deep, but it was flowing fast enough that ice had not formed completely, and the rocks were slippery. Martin's truck was stuck at an angle, his rear wheels spinning uselessly. I blocked the road with my truck and got out. "Get off my property now." Martin climbed out of his truck, his face red from exertion or anger or both. "We are using the emergency exit, as is our right as HOA members." "You have no right. This is criminal trespassing. Leave immediately or I am calling the sheriff." "Go ahead and call them," Martin said. "We will see who they side with." I pulled out my phone and dialed the Pitkin County Sheriff's Office. The dispatcher answered after 3 rings, and I explained the situation. She said she would send a deputy, but with the weather and road conditions, it might be 45 minutes to an hour. "Sheriff is on the way," I told Martin. "You can wait here and explain to them why you thought trespassing was a good idea, or you can back your trucks up right now and leave." One of the other drivers, a man named Greg who lived 3 houses down from Patricia, looked nervous. "Martin, maybe we should just go back. I did not sign up to get arrested." "No one is getting arrested," Martin snapped. "This is a civil matter at most. Zachary is being unreasonable, and we are simply exercising our rights during an emergency." "What emergency?" I demanded. "Is someone having a heart attack? Is there a fire?" "No. You are just mad that I would not let you push me around." The standoff continued for another 10 minutes before Martin finally accepted that he was not getting his truck unstuck without a tow, and the sheriff really was coming. The group backed their vehicles up the logging road with significant difficulty, scraping undercarriages and spinning tires. I followed them all the way to my property line to make sure they left. Deputy Ryan Martinez arrived 50 minutes later, a stocky man in his 30s with a no-nonsense demeanor. I showed him my property deed with the easement clearly marked, explained what had happened, and provided the names of everyone involved. "Do you want to press charges?" he asked. I hesitated. Pressing charges would escalate things significantly, but it would also send a clear message that I was serious about protecting my property rights. "Yes, I want a formal trespass warning issued to all of them, and if they come back, I want them arrested." Deputy Martinez nodded and made notes. "I will go talk to them now. The HOA president lives at which address?" I gave him Patricia's address and watched him drive away. I knew this was not over. Patricia did not back down from fights. She escalated them. Sure enough, by noon I had received an official notice from the HOA stating that I was in violation of 17 different community rules. My house number was supposedly the wrong font. My mailbox was a 1/4 inch too tall. My driveway had moss growing between the pavers. My exterior light fixtures were not the approved style, even though they had been there when I bought the house, and Patricia had approved them during my initial inspection. The list went on and on, each violation carrying a $50 fine per day until corrected. If I did not address all violations within 7 days, the fines would double. If I did not address them within 30 days, the HOA could file a lien against my property. It was classic Patricia. She could not use my road, so she would use the HOA's rules as a weapon to punish me. The total fines, if I did not comply, would be over $800 per day. In a month, that would be nearly $25,000. I called a real estate attorney in Aspen named Robert Thornton who specialized in HOA disputes. His receptionist said he was booked solid but could do a phone consultation the next day. I took it. That evening, I got a knock on my door. I looked through the peephole and saw a woman I vaguely recognized from the neighborhood standing on my porch. She was in her mid-30s, wearing a practical winter coat and boots with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked nervous. I opened the door but kept the screen closed. "Can I help you?" "Hi, I am Emma Winters. I live over on Aspen Court. Can I talk to you for a minute?" "It is about the HOA situation." I studied her for a moment, trying to gauge if this was some kind of setup, then unlocked the screen door. "Come in." She stepped inside and immediately got to the point. "I heard about what happened with Patricia and the logging road. I also heard she hit you with a bunch of bogus violations. I wanted you to know that not everyone in Cascade Ridge agrees with what she is doing." "Okay," I said cautiously. "Why are you telling me this?" Emma glanced around as if worried someone might be listening. "Because Patricia has been running this HOA like her personal kingdom for 3 years, and a lot of us are sick of it. But everyone is too scared to speak up. because they have seen what she does to people who cross her. When I heard you told her no, I thought maybe someone finally had the guts to stand up to her. I am not trying to be a hero, I said. I just do not want strangers using my private road. I get it. But here is the thing, Patricia is not just power-hungry. She is actually stealing from the HOA. That got my attention. What do you mean? Emma pulled out her phone and showed me a series of photos. They were pictures of financial documents, budget reports, and bank statements. My husband does IT work, and last year Patricia hired him to set up a new computer system for HOA records. When he was transferring files, he found these. Patricia has been funneling HOA funds into shell companies that she controls. Over the past 3 years, she has embezzled almost $200,000. I stared at the documents, my mind racing. Why have you not gone to the police? Because we are scared, Emma admitted. Patricia is connected. Her brother is a judge in Denver. Her husband is a lobbyist with eyes to the state legislature. My husband is afraid if we accuse her without ironclad proof, she will destroy us. She could tank his business with false reviews, file frivolous lawsuits, make our lives hell. But you are already on her radar. You are already fighting her. Maybe together we actually have a chance. I thought about the bogus violations, the trespassing, Patricia's threats. Emma was right that I was already in Patricia's crosshairs, and if she was embezzling HOA funds, that was a felony. Real consequences, not just civil matters. Send me those documents, I said. All of them. I am meeting with a lawyer tomorrow anyway. Let me see what he says about our options. Emma looked relieved. Thank you. And Zachary, be careful. Patricia does not just punish people through the HOA. She has ways of making problems disappear. After Emma left, I spent 2 hours examining the documents she had sent. I was not a forensic accountant, but even I could see the problems. Patricia had approved payments to a landscaping company called Mountain View Services for almost $70,000 over 3 years. But Mountain View Services had been registered just 4 months before the first payment. Its business address was a P.O. box, and the State Business Registry listed Patricia's maiden name, Patricia Hendricks Morrison, as the registered agent. There were similar patterns with a snow removal company, a maintenance contractor, and a consulting firm that had been paid $15,000 for community development services that nobody could remember receiving. This was not just padding invoices or questionable expenses. This was systematic theft. My phone consultation with Robert Thornton the next morning lasted 90 minutes instead of the scheduled 30. He listened to everything: the logging road dispute, the trespassing, the retaliatory violations, and finally, the evidence of embezzlement. You have got a situation here, he said when I finished. The good news is your property rights regarding the logging road are solid. Private easements are well protected under Colorado law, and the HOA has no authority to force you to share it. The retaliatory violations are also actionable. We can file for injunctive relief and argue selective enforcement. And the embezzlement? That is criminal. You need to take that evidence to the district attorney's office, not a civil lawyer. But here is the problem. If you go public with this, Patricia is going to know someone leaked those documents. She will come after you and Emma's husband hard. She is already coming after me. True, which means you might as well go all in. He paused. I can represent you on the civil HOA matters. File a lawsuit against the HOA for harassment and selective enforcement. Get an injunction blocking them from collecting on those bogus fines. But the criminal stuff, you need to take that to law enforcement and let them handle it. What are the chances they actually prosecute? With this much evidence, pretty good, but it will take time, months probably. Can you handle Patricia's retaliation that long? I thought about my savings, my remote work situation, my stubbornness. Yeah, I can handle it. We agreed on a retainer, and Robert said he would have a draft complaint ready within a week. In the meantime, he advised me to document everything, every interaction with Patricia, every HOA communication, every violation notice. Build the case that this was all retaliation. On day 3 of the freeze, the frozen waterfall was actually getting bigger. The temperature had not risen above 0 in 72 hours, and the cliff face now looked like something from a fantasy movie, with ice formations 20 feet thick in places. The county had sent engineers to assess the situation, but they arrived via helicopter because the road was completely impassable. Their report said it would be at least another 4 days before temperatures rose enough to safely bring in equipment, and even then, they would need specialized gear to break up the ice without causing a collapse that could damage the road. Cascade Ridge was going to be isolated for at least a week total, possibly more. My logging road was now the only way in or out, and people were getting desperate. I had neighbors showing up at my door offering money for access. $100, $200, $500. One guy offered me $1,000 just to let him drive out to get his prescription medications, which he could have easily gotten delivered by drone or helicopter, but he was too proud to ask. I turned them all down, not because I wanted to be difficult, but because Patricia had made this personal. If I started letting people use my road, she would claim victory and keep pushing. And more practically, my road really was dangerous. It was meant for logging trucks with experienced drivers, not suburban SUVs driven by people who had never done real off-roading. Someone was going to get hurt, and then they would sue me. On the evening of the third day, Patricia herself showed up at my door. She was alone this time, without Martin or her other enforcers. She had traded her usual polished appearance for something more casual: jeans, a fleece jacket, minimal makeup. The kind of outfits intended to make her look relatable and sympathetic. "Zachary," she said when I opened the door, "can we talk?" Just the two of us, off the record. Every instinct told me this was a trap, but I was curious what angle she was going to try. I stepped out onto the porch rather than inviting her in. "What do you want, Patricia?" She sighed, a practiced gesture of weariness. "I want to apologize. I have been under a lot of stress with the freeze and the community being cut off, and I let that affect my judgment. The violations I sent you were excessive. I am going to withdraw them, just like that. Just like that." She gave me what was probably supposed to be a warm smile. "I am also prepared to offer you compensation for allowing residents to use your logging road. Say $5,000 paid from the emergency fund. The emergency fund that you have been embezzling from?" Her smile vanished. The mask dropped completely, and I saw the real Patricia Hendricks, cold, calculating, and absolutely furious. "What did you just say?" "I said I know about Mountain View Services, about the consulting fees, about all of it. I have seen the documents, Patricia. I know what you have been doing." She was quiet for a long moment, her expression unreadable. When she finally spoke, her voice was soft and dangerous. "Who told you? Does it matter? It matters very much." She stepped closer, and I instinctively moved back. "You have no idea what you are doing, Zachary. You think you are being some kind of hero, standing up to the mean HOA president? You are going to destroy yourself. By exposing a criminal, you have got nothing," she hissed. "Some suspicious payments? So what? I can explain every one of them. My brother is a judge. My husband knows half the state legislature. You are a nobody with a cheap cabin and a logging road. Who do you think people are going to believe? I think the district attorney is going to be very interested in the evidence." Patricia laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You have not gone to the DA yet. If you had, you would not be talking to me right now. So let me make you an offer. Drop this. Forget whatever you think you know. Let the residents use your road, take your $5,000, and we will all move on. Or do not, and I will bury you. I will file so many liens against your property you will be fighting them for years. I will make sure every business in this county knows you are litigious and difficult. I will ruin your life. Get off my property." "Think about it," Patricia said, already backing away. "You have until tomorrow evening to decide. After that, the offer is gone, and I stop playing nice." I watched her walk back to her Lexus and drive away. My hands were shaking again, but this time it was more anger than fear. Patricia had just confirmed everything Emma had said. She was not just corrupt, she was dangerous. I called Emma immediately. "Patricia knows. She did not say how, but she knows someone leaked the financial documents." "Oh God." Emma's voice was shaky. "What do we do?" "We go to the district attorney tomorrow. First thing. Before Patricia has time to cover her tracks or intimidate more people. What if they do not believe us? Then we go to the media, but we have to do something now, Emma. Patricia just threatened me directly. She is escalating." We agreed to meet at the Pitkin County Courthouse in Aspen at 9 a.m. I would use my logging road to get there. and Emma and her husband would come in from another direction to avoid suspicion. We would bring all the evidence and lay it out for the DA's office. That night, I barely slept. I kept expecting to hear vehicles on my road again, or to wake up to my house on fire, or any of a dozen other paranoid scenarios. Patricia had made it clear she was willing to go far beyond HOA politics to protect herself. At 7 a.m., I was loading my truck when I heard the sound of a helicopter. Not unusual, medical helicopters and county services had been flying over regularly during the freeze, but this one was getting closer, and then I saw it descending toward the open area near the HOA community center. I grabbed my binoculars and watched as the helicopter landed. 2 people got out, a man and a woman in business attire, followed by Deputy Martinez and another sheriff's deputy. They walked directly to Patricia's house. My phone rang. It was Emma. "Are you watching this?" "Yeah." "Who are they?" "I do not know, but that is not good. You do not think Patricia found out we were going to the DA, do you?" How could she? But even as I said it, I realized there were a dozen ways Patricia could have found out. She had allies in the HOA, probably some monitoring software on the community's network, maybe even connections at the sheriff's office. 10 minutes later, I got my answer. Deputy Martinez called my phone. "Mr. Xu, this is Deputy Martinez. I need you to stay at your residence. Some investigators from the district attorney's office need to speak with you." "About what?" "They will explain when they arrive. Just stay put, please." He hung up before I could ask more questions. My mind was racing. Had Patricia somehow turned this around? Was she accusing me of something? The helicopter took off from the community center and headed in my direction. It landed in my driveway, the rotor wash blowing snow everywhere. The 2 people I had seen earlier got out, followed by Deputy Martinez. The woman was in her 40s, with short red hair and sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. The man was older, maybe 60, with gray hair and a weathered face. They both showed me badges from the Colorado Attorney General's office. "Mr. Xu, I am Special Agent Karen Delgado, and this is Special Agent Tom Chen. We are with the Public Corruption Unit. We need to talk to you about Patricia Hendricks and the Cascade Ridge HOA." I blinked. "You are already investigating her?" Agent Delgado smiled slightly. "We have been investigating her for 6 months. We got an anonymous tip about financial irregularities, and when we started digging, we found a lot more than we expected. We understand you recently came into possession of some financial documents." "How did you?" "Emma Winters contacted us yesterday," Agent Chen said. "She was scared to come forward before, but when she heard you were planning to go to the DA today, she decided to beat you to it. Smart move, actually. Gave us time to coordinate. Relief washed over me, so you already have the evidence." "We have a lot of evidence," Delgado said, "but we need your help. Patricia is dangerous. When she realizes we are moving in, she is going to try to destroy records, intimidate witnesses, maybe run. We need to move fast, and we need you to act normal for the next few hours. What do you want me to do?" "Patricia offered you a deal yesterday, correct? To drop your complaints about the road in exchange for money?" "Yes. I have until this evening to accept." "We want you to accept," Chen said. "Wear a wire. Get her to repeat the offer and admit that the money is coming from HOA funds. If we are really lucky, she will say something incriminating about the embezzlement or about threatening you." This was moving way faster than I had expected. "And if she searches me for a wire, this is not the movies," Delgado said. "HOA presidents do not frisk people, but if you are not comfortable, we understand. We have enough to arrest her right now. This would just strengthen the case." I thought about Patricia's threat, about the way she had treated the entire community for years, about how many people she had probably hurt with her schemes. "I will do it." They fitted me with a wire that was smaller than I expected, just a little device that clipped inside my shirt with a microphone built into a button. They tested it, gave me instructions on how to guide the conversation without making it obvious, and then had me call Patricia. She answered on the second ring. "Zachary, have you thought about my offer?" "Yeah, I will take it. The 5,000, and you withdraw the violations, and everyone leaves me alone after this." There was a pause. I could almost hear her calculating, wondering if this was too easy. "You made the right choice. Come to my house at 6 p.m. I will have a check ready. I want cash." "Excuse me? Cash. 5,000 in cash. I do not trust HOA checks." Another pause. "Fine, cash, 6 p.m. Do not be late." She hung up. Agent Delgado nodded approvingly. Good. Asking for cash makes it look more like a bribe, which it is. Now we wait. The next 8 hours were the longest of my life. I tried to work, but I could not focus. I kept imagining everything that could go wrong. What if Patricia had figured out I was working with the investigators? What if she had already destroyed the evidence? What if her connections really were good enough to make this all go away? At 5:45 p.m., I started walking toward Patricia's house. It was only a quarter mile through the community, but in the near dark and cold, it felt much longer. Agents Delgado and Chen were positioned in a surveillance van disguised as a cable repair truck, along with Deputy Martinez and 3 other deputies in unmarked vehicles around the community. Patricia answered her door with her professional smile back in place. Zachary, come in. Her house was as immaculate as always, white carpets, modern furniture, everything arranged like a magazine spread. She led me to her dining room where an envelope sat on the table. $5,000, she said. Count it if you want. I picked up the envelope and looked inside. Stacks of 20s and 50s. Where did this come from? The emergency fund, like I said. And the board approved this. She laughed. The board approves what I tell them to approve. Now, are we done here? Do I have your word you will drop your complaints and let residents use your road? I want to be clear about what I am agreeing to. You are paying me $5,000 from HOA funds to allow road access and to stop. Looking into HOA finances? Patricia's eyes narrowed slightly. I am paying you to be a cooperative member of this community. That is all. But you are specifically paying me to stop asking questions about Mountain View Services and the other contractors. I never said that. But that is part of the deal, right? I shut up and you leave me alone? She stepped closer, and I saw the calculation in her eyes. She was trying to decide if I was wearing a wire or working with law enforcement, or if I was just being paranoid. Zachary, she said carefully, I do not know what you think you know, but let me be very clear. The HOA finances are none of your concern. You are not on the board. You do not attend meetings. You have no standing to question how I run this community. This $5,000 is a gesture of goodwill, nothing more. So if I did go to the authorities with concerns about financial irregularities, this payment would not be seen as hush money. Are you recording this conversation? My heart hammered. No, why would I? Because you are asking very specific questions designed to get me to say something incriminating. Do you think I am stupid? She crossed to a cabinet and pulled out a device that looked like a small radio. When she turned it on, it started beeping. She walked toward me, and the beeping got faster. RF detector, she said coldly. Picks up wireless transmitters. You are wearing a wire, Zachary. Big mistake. She turned and ran for the back of the house. I heard a door slam, and then the sound of a car engine starting. Patricia had a garage that opened to the alley behind her house. I ran for the front door, shouting, "She is running! Back alley!" The surveillance team reacted immediately. I heard vehicles starting, but Patricia had a head start. I ran around the house in time to see her Lexus fishtailing down the snow-covered alley toward the main road, toward the frozen waterfall and the blocked exit. For a moment, I thought she had forgotten about these blockage, but then I saw her turn sharply and head toward my house, toward the logging road. She is going for my road, I shouted into the wire. She is headed west. I ran back to my house, but Patricia was faster. By the time I got there, her Lexus was already bouncing down the logging road, her white SUV disappearing into the dark trees. The surveillance van tried to follow, but it was not equipped for off-road driving. It bottomed out at the first steep grade and got stuck. Deputy Martinez pulled up in his cruiser. Can your truck catch her? Maybe, if she does not kill herself first. I jumped in my truck with Martinez in the passenger seat, and we raced down the logging road. My truck was built for this terrain, with heavy-duty suspension and aggressive tires. Patricia's Lexus was not. I could follow her tracks in the snow, see where she had slid and bounced off rocks and trees. She is not going to make it, Martinez said. This road is suicide in the dark at that speed. He was right. A quarter mile ahead, I saw Patricia's taillights swerve violently, then disappear. We came around a curve and found her Lexus nose down in the creek, steam rising from the hood. The airbags had deployed, and Patricia was struggling to get the door open. Martinez and I pulled her out. She was bruised and shaken, but not seriously injured. He cuffed her while reading her Miranda rights. "You cannot do this," Patricia spat. "Do you know who my brother is? Do you know who my husband knows? I will have your badge." "Yeah, I have heard that before," Martinez said. "You are under arrest for embezzlement, fraud, and fleeing from law enforcement. Anything else you want to add?" Agents Delgado and Chen hiked down the logging road 15 minutes later. They had already secured Patricia's house and found what they needed: a safe full of cash, offshore bank account information, and emails discussing the shell companies. Patricia had kept everything, probably as insurance against her co-conspirators, never thinking it would be used against her. "You did good," Delgado told me as we watched paramedics check Patricia for injuries. "This is going to save a lot of people a lot of money." "What happens now? Now we finish building the case. Patricia is facing federal charges, not just state, wire fraud, tax evasion, probably RICO violations given how organized this was. Her brother being a judge does not matter when it is federal prosecutors. She is looking at 10 to 15 years minimum." The frozen waterfall finally broke up 6 days after it had formed. The county brought in specialized equipment and worked for 2 solid days to clear the ice without damaging the road. By the time Cascade Ridge's main exit was open again, the story had already hit the media. HOA president arrested in embezzlement scheme ran in the Aspen Daily News. The Denver Post picked it up, then the Colorado Sun, and then it went national because people love HOA horror stories. Patricia's mugshot, her perfect hair disheveled, her makeup smeared from airbag powder, became a minor internet meme. The investigation revealed that Patricia had stolen over $230,000 during her 3 years as president. She had also accepted kickbacks from contractors, inflated repair costs, and even funneled HOA funds into a failed restaurant investment. Her husband, once he realized he was going to be implicated, immediately filed for divorce and cooperated with investigators. Her brother, the judge, recused himself from anything involving the case and released a statement condemning her actions. In the end, Patricia Hendricks pleaded guilty to 14 counts of wire fraud, 8 counts of embezzlement, 3 counts of tax evasion, and 1 count of fleeing from law enforcement. She was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison with no parole eligibility until she had served at least 8 years. She was also ordered to pay full restitution to the HOA plus penalties, which meant her house, her savings, and her retirement accounts were all liquidated. The HOA held emergency elections. Emma Winters was elected president on a platform of transparency and accountability. One of her first acts was to hire a forensic accountant to audit all HOA finances going back 5 years. They found even more irregularities than Patricia had been charged with smaller thefts and questionable expenses that added up to another $60,000. Martin Clark and Donna Sheffield were both implicated in the scheme. Martin was charged as an accessory and eventually pleaded guilty in exchange for probation. Donna claimed ignorance, but the evidence showed she had knowingly falsified financial reports. She got 3 years in state prison. As for me, the HOA voted to grant me an easement agreement that formalized my logging road as a secondary emergency exit. In exchange, I agreed to maintain it to certain standards and allow emergency vehicle access if the main road was ever blocked again. I was also reimbursed for my legal fees and received a formal apology from the new board. Life in Cascade Ridge improved dramatically without Patricia. Violation notices dropped by 90%. Community meetings actually became productive discussions instead of lectures. Property values went up because people were not terrified of their own HOA anymore. I still use my logging road regularly, but now other residents wave when they see me instead of glaring. Emma and her husband became good friends. On clear days, I can see the frozen waterfall from my back deck. It still forms every winter when temperatures drop, though never as dramatically as that January. It reminds me that sometimes obstacles reveal the truth that has been hidden beneath the surface all along. The whole experience taught me something important about communities and power. Patricia had not become corrupt because she was HOA president. She had sought the position because she was already corrupt and saw it as an opportunity. She had counted on apathy and fear to keep people from questioning her. She had never imagined that something as simple as a frozen waterfall and a private logging road would expose her entire operation. I got a letter from Patricia about a year into her sentence. It was forwarded through her attorney, so there was no return address. In it, she did not apologize or admit wrongdoing beyond the legal requirements of her plea deal. Instead, she blamed me. She said if I had just been reasonable and let people use my road from the beginning, none of this would have happened. She claimed she had only taken the money because she worked so hard for the community and deserved compensation. She insisted that she had been unfairly persecuted while others who did worse things got away with it. I threw the letter away. There was no point in responding. Patricia was never going to accept responsibility for her choices. She would always believe she was the victim. Emma called me one evening about 18 months after Patricia's arrest. I thought you should know we are having a ceremony to rename the community center. The board voted to call it the Cascade Ridge Transparency Center. Plaque and everything. There is also going to be a memorial listing all the residents who were harmed by Patricia's schemes. We want to make sure this never happens again. That is good, I said. The community deserves that. We also want to put up a second plaque thanking you for your role in exposing the corruption, if you are okay with that. I thought about it for a moment. Part of me wanted to say no, to just fade back into anonymity. But Emma was right that the story mattered. Not because I was some hero, but because it showed that ordinary people could stand up to corruption when they worked together. Okay, I said. But make sure Emma and her husband's names are on there too. They took the real risk. Deal. The ceremony was held on a bright Saturday in May, with most of the community in attendance. The new community center plaque was simple and direct, dedicated to transparency, accountability, and the principle that those who serve our community do so in trust, not for personal gain. Below it was a list of 8 residents whose properties had been unfairly lined or who had been financially harmed by Patricia's schemes. The second plaque read, "With gratitude to Zachary Xu, Emma and Daniel Winters, and all residents who spoke the truth when silence was easier. May their courage inspire integrity in our community for generations to come." It was probably too dramatic, but Emma had insisted, and I had learned to pick my battles. After the ceremony, a lot of people came up to thank me. Some apologized for not standing up to Patricia sooner. A few admitted they had known something was wrong, but were too scared to say anything. One older woman, Mrs. Patterson, told me that Patricia had threatened to foreclose on her home over a garden that was allegedly the wrong type of flowers. She had lived in fear for months before Patricia's arrest freed her from that constant anxiety. "You gave us our community back," she said, tears in her eyes. "Thank you." That was when it really hit me what Patricia had done. It was not just about the money she stole. It was about the fear she had created, the way she had turned neighbors against each other, the stress and anxiety she had caused people who were just trying to live in their homes in peace. I shook Mrs. Patterson's hand and told her she was welcome, but inside I was angry all over again. 12 years was not enough. No sentence would be enough for someone who had deliberately terrorized dozens of people for years. But at least she was gone. At least the community could heal. I drove home that evening and took my usual route down the logging road just because I could. The creek was flowing clear and fast with spring runoff. The trees were green with new growth. The road was rough as always, but I knew every rock and rut by now. When I got home, I poured myself a beer and sat on my back deck watching the sunset paint the mountains orange and pink. Somewhere up in those peaks, water was still flowing down the cliff face that had frozen so dramatically 18 months ago. By next winter, it would freeze again. The cycle would continue. But Cascade Ridge was different now. Better. The HOA board Emma led actually served the community instead of exploiting it. Rules were enforced fairly and consistently. Finances were transparent, with detailed reports published monthly and audited annually by an independent firm. Meetings were productive instead of adversarial. It turned out that when you removed a toxic person from power, the whole system improved. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Thanks again for everything today. Community dinner next Saturday at the center. You better show up." I smiled and typed back, "I will be there." For the first time since I had bought my house in Cascade Ridge, I actually felt like I was part of a community rather than just living among neighbors. It had taken up frozen Waterfall, a corrupt HOA president, and a lot of courage from people who had been scared for too long, but we had built something better from the wreckage. And I still had my logging road, that rough path through the forest that had started everything. It was not just an escape route anymore. It was a reminder that sometimes the things that make us different, the things that set us apart, can become the most valuable assets we have when times get tough. I raised my beer to the mountains in the setting sun, to frozen waterfalls and logging roads, to courage and truth and communities that chose to be better than their worst leaders. Then I went inside to make dinner, just another resident of Cascade Ridge, no longer fighting battles but finally living in peace. The legal proceedings against Patricia continued for another year after her sentencing. Civil suits from affected homeowners resulted in additional settlements, though most of that money went to pay her restitution obligations. Her ex-husband testified in several depositions that he had warned her years ago to stop the schemes, but she had been addicted to the power and the money. He claimed he had not realized the full extent of her fraud, which investigators doubted but could not disprove. Martin Clark lost his law license after his conviction. He moved away from Colorado entirely, reportedly to Arizona where he worked as a paralegal. Donna Sheffield served 18 months of her 3-year sentence and was released on parole. She moved in with her daughter in Fort Collins and kept a low profile. The Cascade Ridge HOA fully recovered financially. The restitution payments, combined with insurance payouts for some of the fraud, meant the community actually ended up with more money in reserves than it had started with. Emma's board used the funds to finally make improvements that Patricia had claimed to be making, but never did: real landscaping upgrades, road maintenance, and a new playground for the community's kids. I got occasional media requests for interviews about the case, especially when similar HOA fraud stories hit the news. I usually declined, though I did do one interview with a local investigative reporter who was doing a series on HOA corruption across Colorado. That series eventually led to state legislation requiring more oversight of HOA finances and making it easier for homeowners to challenge improper fees and liens. Small victories, but they mattered. 3 years after Patricia's arrest, on another cold January evening when the waterfall was again frozen solid though not blocking the road, this time I was working in my home office when I got an unexpected call from Agent Delgado. "Mr. Xu, I wanted to let you know that Patricia Hendricks was denied her first parole hearing. She will serve at least another 5 years before she is eligible again." What happened? She has not exactly been a model prisoner. Multiple disciplinary reports for attempting to manipulate other inmates and organize unauthorized activities. The parole board noted that she showed no genuine remorse and remained a risk for reoffending. That sounds about right. I thought you would appreciate knowing. The case you helped us build was solid enough that she is actually serving her time. A lot of white-collar criminals get out early. She would not. Thanks for letting me know. After we hung up, I sat for a while thinking about Patricia. I wondered if she had learned anything from her experience, if she ever had moments of genuine self-reflection. Probably not. Some people were so committed to their version of reality that they could never acknowledge their own wrongdoing. But that was not my problem anymore. I closed my laptop and headed outside. The air was crisp and cold, stars brilliant in the clear mountain sky. I could hear the faint sound of laughter from a few houses away, someone having a dinner party. Normal sounds of a normal neighborhood. That was what we had fought for. Not glory, not revenge, just the simple ability to live in peace in our own homes without fear of our own governing body. It seemed like such a basic thing to want, but Patricia had stolen it from us. Now we had it back. I went back inside and called Emma. "Hey, I know it is late, but I was thinking about everything that happened. Just wanted to say thanks for trusting me back when you first knocked on my door with those, 'Are you getting sentimental in your old age?' she teased. I was 38, hardly old, but Emma loved to give me grief. Just reflecting, it has been 3 years. Best thing that ever happened to this community," she said seriously. "I mean, obviously the embezzlement was terrible, but it forced us to clean house and rebuild the right way. We are actually a real community now, not just a collection of houses ruled by a tyrant." That is exactly what I was thinking. You are still coming to the annual meeting next week, right? We are voting on some actual interesting proposals for once. Plus, I am making the treasurer give a presentation on finances that normal humans can understand. I will be there, and I was. The annual meeting had 32 residents in attendance, which was more than had attended in the entire 3 years of Patricia's presidency combined. The treasurer's report was actually comprehensible, showing healthy reserves and responsible spending. The community voted on several initiatives, including upgrading the community center's heating system and organizing a neighborhood watch program. It was all remarkably boring and normal, which was exactly what a good HOA should be. After the meeting, I drove home using my logging road because I still preferred it to the main entrance. The road was dark and rough as always, but I had traveled it so many times now that I could probably drive it blindfolded. As I crossed the second creek, my headlights caught the reflection of ice forming at the edges. Winter was doing its thing, turning water to ice, creating those dramatic frozen displays that would melt away come spring. The cycle that had started everything 3 years ago continued, indifferent to human drama. But I was not indifferent anymore. I had learned that choosing not to participate was itself a choice, one that allowed people like Patricia to operate unchecked. I had learned that sometimes the inconvenient path, the rough logging road that everyone else avoided, was exactly the right path to take. Most importantly, I had learned that communities were fragile things that required active participation to remain healthy. You could not just pay your dues and assume everything was fine. You had to pay attention, speak up when things were wrong, and support others who had the courage to tell the truth. I parked in my driveway and sat for a moment, looking at my modest cedar-sided cabin that Patricia had tried so hard to take from me with her bogus violations and liens. It was still standing. I was still here, and the community around me was better than it had been in years. The frozen waterfall had blocked our only exit for 3 days, but it had also revealed the truth we needed to see. Sometimes obstacles were blessings in disguise, forcing us to find new paths and discover strengths we did not know we had. I went inside, poured another beer, raised an incessant toast to frozen waterfalls, logging roads, and the courage of ordinary people who refused to be pushed around. Then I got back to work because life continued, and there were always new challenges ahead. But now I faced them with the confidence that came from knowing I could stand up when it mattered, that my neighbors would support me when they saw the truth, and that corruption could be defeated when people worked together. Cascade Ridge was not perfect, no community was, but it was ours, and we had fought to make it better. That was enough.